What's up, Tulane fans? Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Wave, Spring Game Edition. We almost just had a water bottle fall over. Apologies for that. But it was a pretty great day. Some great weather, a lot of recruits there. What do you think, Isaac? Do you have any opening remarks?
Yeah, had a lot of fun. I think the fans did as well. I talked to a few students that attended the game. They seemed to have a great time at the game. Really excited for the defense next year specifically. The defense did win 36-22, but we're up a little bit more earlier in the day until the fourth quarter, into the third quarter.
Yeah, it was really a dominant performance by the defense. You kind of expect the defense to be a little bit ahead of the offense at this time in the year, but the linebackers especially looked phenomenal. I know we talked a little bit with Sam Howard after the game. You can check our Twitters, the Fear the Wave Twitter, iPop Stats, or Burrows Report. We have some interviews with players about that, but I was really impressed. I think if I had to pick a standout on each side of the ball, on defense it would be Sam Howard, and on offense I think Jamauri McClure is the easy choice.
I thought that the defensive line really won out over the offensive line today. So I think that was probably my top position group for the day. If I had to pick an MVP for the game, on the offensive side of the ball, not necessarily my MVP, but my best player on offense, also Jamauri McClure. And for MVP, it's a tough pick. I really feel like so many players on defense. Some may start, some may battle for the starting position, some may be backups. They really played well. So many different players came up with sacks, interceptions. So it's hard to pick one, but I'll give it to our guy, Sam Howard, for the pick six.
So we actually had the same MVP on each side of the ball.
I guess so. Usually I do my iPop's top players, put it out on Twitter. We break it down on the podcast all throughout last fall. We did who my top six players were. I don't have my PFF scores. I don't have all my stats for that today. So for now, I'll give it to Sam Howard.
Go based on the eye test now?
I actually combine the eye test. I do about 50-50 eye test plus numbers and really try to mesh those two together, see where they agree, not just overall scores, but also how the eye test matches up with certain individual metrics and scores on PFF. So that's how I compute my top players. So today I'll have to go with basically 90% eye test, just 10% the interception, and
I guess that's a stat,
sacks,
the interception.
things like that I can tell, stats I can remember in my head.
One of the things we were talking about pregame about Jamauri McClure, we also talked about for Jack Chinchu, is just how much muscle both of them have put on in the last few months. They really have transformed their bodies.
Yeah, this was something we talked about during the season with Rusty Witt. We were really impressed during the offseason how he got players in shape, and not just adding muscle, but also speed. And it's a rare combination to get both. We brought Rusty Witt on. So if this topic interests you, definitely check out our extensive Fear the Wave interview with Rusty Witt. And you saw it with a lot of different players. Kellen Tasby, who we'll talk about later, another one of those who added a lot of muscle. If I had to guess, 10 pounds of muscle.
Well, about 2 inches of height, too.
A bunch as well. Yeah, Kellen Tasby, now 6'6". I said 6'4". You corrected me at 6'6". I was going off the old numbers, but now I can tell it looks like Kellen Tasby grew 2 inches.
Yeah, there's a reason the team and some of the fans call him Wimby. Same build.
Yeah, he looked like he was our starting small forward, maybe power forward for the basketball team.
Hey, if receiver doesn't work out, that's his next position switch. But he's looked good at receiver. We have a video that'll be out on Twitter with him. We talked to him a little bit after the game just about the position switch. Definitely a guy who I'm not only cheering for, but actually pretty optimistic for.
Yeah, me too. Really nice guy, but he gave us a lot of optimism. I really do think that he's going to be a contributor at wide receiver, and maybe we'll see some at quarterback too. He was one of 5 players that took snaps at quarterback today. I thought maybe we'd see 4, and we did see 5. He's listed as wide receiver / quarterback on the roster with dual position.
That's true. He's a part of a pretty talented receiver room. I wouldn't be surprised based on just numbers and based on what we've seen this spring if they took another receiver in the portal just to add to that room, maybe get a starter. If that kind of player is available, you always want to get better. I wouldn't be surprised if we did the same thing at quarterback. I know corner with the departure of Rayshawn Pleasant, I think we probably need one more there. So I'd say those plus punter are the main 4 positions that I expected us to need to address through the portal before the spring game, and now that we've seen the spring game, I think that belief has been reaffirmed.
Yeah, well, we saw some portal attrition this week, and John Summerall did say today to the media that He expects to add about 5 to 10 players. We could even see more than 10. I don't think that'll be the case, but it's definitely not. It's definitely a possibility there. And as you said, John Summerall said quarterback and cornerback are atop the list, but obviously they're going to need to add a punter. As there's only one on the roster, so whether it's a starter or backup punter, or, expected to be so, they're definitely going to need to add at least one punter, probably two, maybe even 3 punters.
Hudlow had some good kicks today, though.
Yeah, I thought Hudlow did well. If you measure the distance of his punts, they're actually pretty on par with the 44 yards per punt average that Will Carroll had in his 2 years here.
It's not bad at all.
No, and
but you need more than one punter on the roster, of course.
Yeah, and we could add a kicker as well. We only had 2 kickers on the roster today.
That'll be more for numbers, though. I don't think they need a starter at kicker.
No, we've got Cooper Helmke, who actually was there today at the game, who's a big recruit, 5-star according to Cole's kicker that's coming in as a freshman next season. He wasn't one of the early enrollees, but we did see some early enrollees. Did any stand out for you today?
Javen Gordon definitely did. He stood out to me all spring. I remember we got there. Isaac and I were watching the running backs warm up, and we were just both shocked at how Javen Gordon looked physically compared to established, college athletes that have been in a college football strength and conditioning program for years. He did not look like a high schooler, even though that's where he should be right now. No,
you can see why he originally was committed to a Power 5 school. And last year, Jamauri McClure looked awesome to us in the summer. And the knock on him was probably we talked a little bit about blocking because that's normal as a freshman, but also physically he was strong, but he wasn't as strong as Javen Gordon looks right now.
Yeah, no, he looks great. He's my Jamauri McClure of this year. You want to go to receiver, I would say Oliver Mitchell is my Sean Nicholas of this year. And then if I had to pick a defensive player who stood out to me, he also had an interception in the spring game, is Dallas Winter Johnson. He's another guy that looks physically bigger than everyone else out there. He's like 6'4", 6'5", playing linebacker, and he's got a crazy wingspan. I think he's gotten a lot. He's got his hands on a lot of passes so far this spring. You saw that today in the spring game, and I really think that has to do with his length and quarterbacks not being used to the area that he can cover with his wingspan.
I like these names, and especially based on what I saw with the interception from Dallas Winter Johnson, because a lot of fans who even follow the recruits and the transfers don't really know those names as well. Mitchell and Winter Johnson, they're looking at Antoine Parham,
right,
who is a massive recruit, 6'4" wide receiver who's injured at the moment.
Megatwan.
Yeah, and guys like that, not necessarily the Oliver Mitchells of the world, or Zach Carl Lewis, who actually played some meaningful snaps for us last season, a true freshman. I thought he looked good today at wide receiver. And the other wide receiver that I think is going to be a contributor that fans might not be familiar with is Anthony Brown-Stephens.
Yes, absolutely. Oliver Mitchell, I think, is right in that conversation for me with Anthony Brown-Stephens. He's missed a significant portion of the spring, so you haven't heard his name as much. But I wouldn't be surprised if not only is he playing meaningful snaps at receiver, but he also might be the starter in the return game.
Wow. That would be interesting for sure. While we're on the topic of offense, I thought that some walk-ons actually played really well.
Yeah.
Seth Gale ended the game on this because we were having a running clock. The final drive was a Jackson Judge-led touchdown drive, walk-on quarterback, transferred from Middle Tennessee. And then Javen Gordon really ended the game with a 9-yard rushing touchdown, but then they went for 4 points. They had about 40 seconds left on the clock, and they had a massive touchdown from Judge to Seth Gale, 4-point conversion, whatever you want to call it, into the end zone to Seth Gale, who went up for it against some potentially number one cornerbacks and safeties in the game. And then they ended the game on that. Everybody in high spirits. It got the game a little bit closer at 36-22 as they got 10 points on that final possession.
Yeah, the walk-on receivers had a pretty good day too. Eric Urbaniak, I think I'm saying that right, had a pretty crucial fourth down conversion there in the second half also.
And the quarterbacks as well. It wasn't just Judge that led a touchdown drive. It was Dig and Bruno who looked awesome, connecting specifically at least 4 times on that touchdown drive and for the touchdown to Anthony Miller, the big tight end who was used a lot in the running game last year as a blocker, but you might not be familiar with him because he didn't run a ton of routes, didn't have many catches at all. But he was able to get open today against our defense, who wasn't really letting anybody get open. So watch out for Anthony Miller, especially considering that Alex Bauman's no longer with the team and Reggie Brown has graduated.
Well, Isaac, now that the spring game is officially over, we can put a bow on the spring. We've got a long summer ahead. We've got some portal news that I'm sure will be coming out in the next few days. Officially 133 days away from Northwestern.
Awesome. I want to just shout out a few more players, specifically on the defense, because they did just have such a big day. We saw sacks from Ty Cooper, a big-time transfer, and Jordan Guidry, who was on the travel squad for a lot of last season, did get in a little bit, a young player. Jaden Lewis played great. Sam Howard told us after the game, you should check out our interview with him, that Jaden Lewis played great. He had a big hit at one point.
Highest rated recruit in Tulane football history.
It's true. And I thought Roderick Williams, a scholarship player who we haven't really heard much of, had really good defense, especially on the first time that Tulane went for 4. Kevin Adams, another player with an interception, along with Sam Howard and Winter Johnson. And then 2 more players that Sam Howard actually gave us. Chase Green, who had a tackle for loss and a huge hit on a second down from the 10, which seemed to be a big play at the end of the game. He cramped up, but he is okay. If you were watching the game, he's perfectly good. And then Nick Alston, who should still be in high school, along with some of these guys that we're talking about, Antoine Parham, Javen Gordon. Nick Alston is this name on defense, number 97, had a batted ball on a 2-point conversion.
Well, I look forward to seeing what pieces we officially add in the transfer portal. I look forward to what should be an exciting season, and I appreciate everything that you've done together this spring, and I can't wait to see what's next for Tulane football. It's an exciting time to be a Tulane sports fan.
Definitely. Make sure you're following FTW Collective. We'll have more content soon.